Hello everyone, welcome back to Out of Spec Guide. I'm Max and I'm here at my friend and colleague's shop, Coleton of Out of Spec Detailing. You may have seen the video we did earlier in this channel where we talked about our personal EV experience with a lot of depreciation that has happened in the EV market that's bit both of us. Me with my Polestar 2, Coleton with his ID4, and his Tesla Model 3s. So in this video, I kind of wanted to counterbalance that and provide some insight into why, as early adopters, despite no doubt some financial impact, we enjoy having EVs and what it actually is like to live with and charge them. So in this video, Coleton and I are going to talk about operational costs, charging them, tires, insurance. We'll get into some of our personal numbers here to give you a better idea of what it's like owning an EV. Again, we are not evangelists here. We're just car enthusiasts who happen to like daily driving EVs. And that's really the position of a lot of us here at Out of Spec. So let's fill you in on what our EV ownership experience has been. All right, Coleton, so you've had a lot of experience of Tesla Model 3s. This is actually one you own, the other one you lease, but this is a 3 Performance from last year.
Yep, so got this, I want to say around September, October time of last year. Crazy price reductions on this car. I think that's one thing to definitely talk about with this and why I actually ended up purchasing this car. So I have had a white Tesla Model 3 long range that I got back in, I guess, 2021, which comes up on lease in September of 24. And the incentives here, especially in Colorado, have been quite impressive to say the least. So this particular vehicle was discounted in inventory from Tesla when I purchased it to $48,000 and a little bit of change in there. So on top of that, I get the $7,500 federal tax credit that goes with this. And then on top of that, a $5,000 state tax credit from Colorado. So we're talking literally around $36,000 essentially out the door for this Model 3 Performance here. And with the charging infrastructure, the car that I personally love, the Tesla Model 3. It does everything I want and more. And the performance of this, I just kind of honestly said, it's a no-brainer. So I went ahead and picked up another one. Having 2 Model 3s is, yes, a little crazy. I'll be totally honest with that. But yeah, really loving this car.
Yeah, and that just shows you how wild the EV market is, right? When you bought your ID4, that was more of a peak in the market. You bought your Model 3 Performance basically at its cheapest because this car, a very similar version of it, right, 2.5 years ago, was selling for over 60 grand. And, you know, you haven't always had that eligibility. I know the Colorado $5,000 state incentive has been fairly new. So that's why we here in Colorado see EVs everywhere. And a lot of people commented on our last video, I don't see why anyone would drive an EV, right? We talked about some of the financial worst cases of having an EV with depreciation with those EVs that we bought at a high in the market. But like you said, Coleton, you happened to just you timed your purchase right into a good moment in the market for a buyer. And the good news right now is, look, it kind of sucks for those of us who are early adopters, maybe someone who bought a Model Y Performance or me buying my Polestar 2, let alone someone who bought a new one of these, right? That's a lot of depreciation to eat. The good thing is, for the next person that comes along, they can get a really solid EV that's affordable. And then beyond that, Coleton, what does it actually cost you, let's say, to fill this up? Let's say you drove home or you drove to the shop here and dead battery, you fill it up. What does this get, like 280 miles of range, 300?
Yeah, EPA. I mean, Tesla never really always matches that number, but I gotta say, honestly, this car is really quite efficient. Now, I don't run a factory wheel and tire setup either in the summertime or the wintertime. So I'm running on Martian MW05s here on a 19-inch Nokian Hakkapeliitta R5. And importantly, it should be known this is the non-EV variant, so no foam in it. And you'll have slightly different differences and discrepancies between the actual rubber compound. So I would say somewhat kind of the worst case scenario here.
Yeah.
I don't really do a ton of road tripping. This car actually has only been fast charged once when I was just playing around with it using the CCS connector over at Electrify America. But I've got, I think, right around 4,000 miles on it. I don't drive it all the time. I'm trying to kind of pile the miles on the white Model 3 this winter. I've been, having fun with this one, doing donuts and stuff in the parking lot here. But yeah, it hasn't been all that bad as far as efficiency. So I at home don't have a fast charger installed for level 2's fast charger. So we actually, my wife and I live off 110 outlets right now.
Just a wall outlet.
Yeah, exactly. So we're getting, a kilowatt per hour. So if you extrapolate that out, this is around 77 kilowatt hour pack, 77 hours. Now that may sound insane to a lot of people, but realistically, when you're using these cars in, I would say, what their 90th percentile of normal driving, like driving to work, going to the grocery store, puttering around town, you can really live off that. Now, if we're going to Denver all the time, that's when it becomes quite annoying to like drive down to Denver and then say the next day I have to go back down there.
Yep.
Makes it complicated to do that.
Yeah.
I have chargers coming, level 2 chargers for home. I've got to yank out pretty much all of my existing stuff and rerun all the lines back. So it's a whole story.
Yeah.
But here at the shop, we have a ton of different chargers. So Max over there by the Twizy, we have an Autel level 2 charger that they supplied to us. That is on that'll do 48 amps, so I believe right around 10 to 11 kilowatts on the Model 3 here. Then we have a 40 amp installed unit over here.
So 6 hours full charge.
Exactly. And the crazy thing here is electricity is almost free. It's 9 cents a kilowatt hour here at the shop. So I don't pay any peak rates or anything like that. It is insanely affordable to do. Max, did you just do the calculation on that?
Yeah, that's basically $7 for you to fully charge this car.
Yeah, so let's call it 250 miles, worst case scenario on this wheel and tire setup for $7. It's truly exceptional, I would say. So realistically, I keep the cars charged here at the shop. So, I'll bring my wife's car here and charge it. It's easy peasy.
Yeah.
The nice thing for me is I never go to gas stations. They charge while I work. They're ready to go when I leave work here. So pretty awesome, I would say.
Yeah, so even with winter tires, and now we're also in cold Colorado winter, experiencing worse range, not an ideal setup for range on either of our EVs. And yet we're fine with it. We're happy with it. Even doing occasionally 80-mile long commutes, if like you have to go down to Denver and back or vice versa, I have to go up here and back down. That's totally doable with EVs, especially if you have some kind of level 2 charging. So really financially, I think EVs make sense for a lot of people. And then if you live in a state like Colorado, then yeah, you get sweet state incentives. I understand though, for a lot of folks where their state incentives aren't as good, or you pay very high premiums for electricity, like places like Alaska or Hawaii.
Or even California.
Or, gosh, California. I mean, everything's gas and electricity are expensive there,
Yes.
but you're paying a lot. At that point, yes, okay, instead of $7, it's like $20 to fill your car up. Then it's not as easy of a proposition just purely financially. But let's flip it back around. I'll talk about my Polestar 2 experience and some of the other intangible aspects and elements of ownership that have factored into my decision to drive an EV. Complementing Coleton's experience with a Tesla, I have a car that charges on, in America, what we call CCS, the combined charging system here. Basically, I use stations like Electrify America or Charge Point Express or whatever it may be if I'm on a road trip. The case being, if I'm on a road trip. When I'm at home, I have a level 2 charger I installed in my garage, and the cost of that, well, it was provided to us for free, but if I had to buy one on my own, it'd be like $500 for the unit, and then about $1,500 to actually wire up the home with the wiring for that. Now that's a fairly expensive install. Some people, if you have a dryer outlet in your garage already or the wiring run already done, then it may be cheaper. And in my case, I actually got $600 back from the government as a credit because I installed that charger. So that's a federal incentive. So there's a lot of incentives floating around there that can make this more affordable. But as a result, for me, I live in Boulder, Colorado. Electricity is a bit more expensive. To fill up my 78 kilowatt hour battery, it costs about $11, which still isn't that bad, better than gas. And kind of like Coleton's Model 3 Performance, I drive a Polestar 2 with the performance package. Large wheels, I'm driving at the moment all-weather tires, some Pirelli Cinturatos. This is not at all a efficient setup, and this is not an efficient EV to begin with. It's pretty inefficient in EV terms. Like in gas analog, it's basically like driving a Dodge Charger. It honestly is that bad comparatively. And yet, I don't really care too much because I have lots of fun driving an EV. And Colton, I know you probably feel this as a car enthusiast too. Sure, we don't have manual transmissions. We don't have the noise of a gasoline engine. I don't think either of us would agree that EVs replace that. And yet, when we're driving up to the mountains or wherever we may be in Colorado on the flats, if we just want to goof around and have fun, these cars, both Coleton, your Model 3 Performance, and my Polestar 2, provide ridiculous levels of power for the money. Like you said what your car was worth, right? New with all those incentives, you get a great deal on it. Now, if someone wants to get a Model 3 Performance, okay, maybe not quite as new or pristine as this, but like a used one, you can pick one up for like 30 grand. Similar situation for the Polestar 2 with Performance Pack. Again, bad for me as an owner at the moment, good for people who are getting into the market. And like with a vehicle like this, I think the Model 3 is similar. I've got the like 480 horsepower. So basically a Subaru Crosstrek's worth of power on each axle is like how I like to think about it, which is just ridiculous and fun. And sure, it's heavier, but it still goes pretty quickly. And so like just for goofing around or honestly just confidence, passing people, I feel way better driving this than I would with a similarly priced gas vehicle, which would, let's be honest, Colton, what would that be? Like a 4-cylinder turbo? Because if you want to get a nicely equipped, let's say BMW 3 Series nowadays, everyone talks about how EVs are expensive. You're going to be paying $60,000 maybe, and then maybe more if you want like a 6-cylinder powertrain. So beyond the environmental argument, beyond, oh, I just want to drive an EV for whatever reason, I just think from a sense of practicality and even having some fun, daily driving an EV makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, Max. And, you know, I've come from a car background my entire life. So I actually own like a 1932 Ford 3-window coupe. Nobody really knows that, but I have been super into hot rods and muscle cars. And then you come here to my shop and I have things like this, a Porsche wall up here, and then all up here on my mezzanine. These are all Porsches. I'm a Porsche enthusiast. I love supercars. I love manual transmission, naturally aspirated engines, turbo, supercharged, diesel, whatever. I'm just a car person. And in all honesty, Max, I really thought the EVs were kind of dumb.
Yeah.
When they first came out, I'm like, I don't get it. Who wants a toaster oven? And then in all honesty, I just went over to Tesla one day and I drove a Model 3 Performance. The first time I floored that car, I went, holy smokes, I can't believe people drive these every day. And look where I'm at now. I've had 3 EVs in basically the past 2.5 years that we've purchased. And I really enjoy the use case of them, the power that they have, but they're so multifunctional. I think like this car is a car that, you know, I've had highly tuned, highly modified, kind of like pretty crazy cars. Like I had a mini GP2 that's full straight piped manual and just like does burnouts and skids everywhere. And my wife would never want to ride with me. And then now she can take the Model 3 Performance to the store and ride in comfort and be quiet and just chill out. And then I can go take this up Angeles Crest or, you know, one of our back roads up here and just keep up with nearly anything. So there's such multi-dimensional vehicles that I think a lot of people don't really understand that until, you know, they really get into it. I'll be the first one to tell you, I really don't care about the green aspects of these cars. My personal opinion is, you know, it takes so long to kind of outweigh all the batteries and the minerals and things that are in these and digging those out of the earth that, you know, trading cars every 2 to 3 years like I do is not really the right way to do it, but that's kind of how I buy cars.
I totally see where you're at, Colton. And I mean, no question about it. Look, if you're watching this video and you have an environmental bent, then the best thing is just don't drive a car. Take the bus, ride a bike. I mean, cars are a lot of metal and moving scrap. So I've never had the impression that getting an EV is necessarily environmentally the best thing. It's still better than combustion, especially as the grid cleans up. But that really wasn't my main goal either. For me, with my Polestar 2, I really enjoy the fact that like at the time I bought it used, $46,000, I got a car with a Brembo brake kit, Öhlins suspension, and alloy wheels, all that. I mean, that honestly, in the grand scheme of things, combustion or electric was pretty affordable. And even with the depreciation, I'm still happy with it. Colton, if I had to sell this today, I don't really know what else I would get. I mean, I just don't like the Model 3 styling too much, but if you like Tesla Model 3, there's that. There's just not that much stuff on the market. I'm really happy with my EV as it is. And that's with the EVs that are on the market. That's Coleton not even excusing the fact that we've got really exciting vehicles like this EV9 we have back here, which are offering now 3-row SUV formats, all kinds of different things for people. So don't take this video so much as a ad for EVs, but consider this to be just some of the real world daily positives and some of the versatility that EVs are giving you. I would argue, like, you've got the Model 3, that's basically the modern BMW 3 Series. You've got the Polestar 2, which is just tons of power, a very heavy, inefficient car, but a really nicely put together one. You've got the Kia EV9, which is now your modern version of like a Telluride or a minivan. So the EV market segment is broadening up. We talked in the other video, Coleton, about Tesla opening up their superchargers and that situation. So I think there's actually not really been a better time to buy an EV. No, you know, we may have our reservations about the instability of the EV market and the environmental cred of EVs. They're not completely clean vehicles. Nothing is when you have a 5,000-pound thing. Nonetheless, I think as car enthusiasts or just as normal car owners, there's a lot to appreciate to dailying an EV. And I just really appreciate the experiences it's brought us. Obviously, Coleton, you and I are special cases where a lot of our work has to do with driving EVs, but we know plenty of people who drive EVs, and for them, it's just a cut and dry financial decision. It's just easier. It's like an appliance, less maintenance. It's nicer in that way.
Yeah, I mean, the EV industry, I think, is at kind of a strange inflection point. So I have had a ton of family members, like I said, that have been into hot rods and, build older vehicles like that. And in all honesty, like I'll take them out in this and they go, wow, that's super impressive. I just don't get it. And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think this replaces something like a Porsche GT3 or an M3 or anything like that.
No.
But the versatility of this car to literally just like cruise around in comfort, go shred up a back road, and then pay $7 to literally charge the thing and control everything on the app, and like all those little things, it just adds up to be such an amazing vehicle, especially for the money. I still to this day cannot understand how I basically purchased that car for around $36,000. It's insane to me.
Yeah. So as early adopters, sure, we'll eat some depreciation every now and then. Coleton on his Teslas may have to live with some panel gaps and imperfect paint. I may have to live with a dated charging standard that I have to adapt to. Maybe our cars don't have the best software to start with, like Coleton's ID4 or my Polestar. But in the case of my Polestar, I've actually been pretty happy with how they've updated it. Tesla has really, I think, probably taken care of its owners the best because they've been the most forward-thinking in this respect. But still, generally, yeah, it's tough in some ways for us still being on the early part of this, transition in vehicles. Coleton, again, we live in Colorado. We see so many EVs here, let alone folks who may live in California. And yet I know people who may live in Alabama or South Carolina. It's a little bit more of a rare sighting to drive a Tesla. And maybe it makes just less sense to you. You look at it and you think, why would someone do that? So don't consider this video us kind of evangelizing EVs. Consider this just us explaining why we find it enjoyable, despite at sometimes very high cost, whether it's financial or monetary, in terms of depreciation. In terms of also, Coleton, we haven't brought up tires. Gosh, that's expensive. Because these vehicles are heavy and they're torquey, and sometimes we like to hoon around on them and launch them. And yeah, okay, EV tires, just like buying tires for an expensive SUV, are going to cost more, and you'll have to replace them more often. And Coleton, I don't know if you've seen the stories on the internet where folks of Teslas are paying really high insurance premiums because of repair costs. For this reason, I think Hertz was like offloading a lot of their fleet. So, there's cases where EVs financially don't make as much sense, but I hope we've shown you in this video a good balance of where those trade-offs lie and how occasionally, like if you time your purchase right, like Coleton did with the Model 3 Performance, you can just get a no-brainer deal. Do you have any other thoughts, Coleton, on general costs with EVs and what it's like living with them with these trade-offs?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few things to consider, like, just even oil changes. I know for most people, this may not be like a big thing, but then you get into, a Tesla or a Polestar, an ID4, an EV9, and the lack thereof of maintenance you actually have to do, and the less times you actually have to take your vehicle in for service really adds up, and it becomes an annoyance. So I own also an Audi Allroad, and like I haven't changed the oil for 2 years because I keep forgetting about it. I put it off. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want my car to get broken when it goes in for service. Somebody strip a drain plug or something like that. And literally between this one and my white Model 3, all of the service that I've really had done, I had a few little issues with my white one where I had to get the driver's seat replaced. It had to go into Tesla Loveland, replaced under warranty. No big deal there. But then you have mobile service coming out for these cars, and I think that's one of the coolest things. So Rivian does quite a bit of that. I know Lucid does a lot. Tesla definitely does a lot, especially here in kind of northern Colorado area. I will say the biggest expense, and it is very expensive, is tires. Max touched on this before. I shred through tires on these cars. I bought a performance, or I bought my long range. I want to use the power of them, and these cars are so heavy and they are just like immediate torque that it just shreds through these tires. Now Teslas are very known for shredding tires, with having issues with not being able to get the alignment perfectly dialed in from factory and having toe and all those different adjustments in there. So they definitely do shred tires a little bit. I think on my white Model 3 Max, I have had 4 or 5 sets of tires in 28,000 miles.
Yikes. That's each set, what is $1,500 or so?
Yeah, easily. So I just purchased for the summertime on my 20-inch Martian wheels, I purchased a set of Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, a very grippy, maximum high performance summer tire, and it's about $1,600 just for the tires. I realistically think I'll get a summer out of them, maybe a summer and a half. Now, I will caveat this in saying I drive my cars pretty decently hard, and launch from stoplights, go shred in the mountains. I'm nowhere near as hard of them on tires and things like that as Kyle is, but I still do go through tires substantially quicker than I think you would in most cars. For example, the Nokian Hakkapeliitas, amazing tires, very soft compound. I went through probably 60% of the tread life in one winter season on my white one. So just take that into consideration. Yes, these cars are expensive up front, or they may maybe not be expensive, in this case, getting incentives and things like that, tax credits, but you do still have expenses. They're not completely like, they're just the cheapest things out there. So do consider that. And especially if you don't have charging at home, Max, I think that can be very cost prohibitive if you're, fast charging your vehicle all the time because you don't have home charging. So that's something to consider too.
Yeah. Or if you don't have workplace charging. I know a lot of people, like my girlfriend is a student, and so she drives down to CU and is able to use chargers there in their parking garage. That works out for her, even though she doesn't have an apartment charger. So just think of the bigger picture if you're EV curious. There are no doubt higher costs. In some cases, insurance premiums. I think in most cases, tires being more expensive, especially the larger and heavier or more powerful the vehicle. Basically, run your numbers. Think about this, because there's incentives that can apply, like my tax break for getting an EV charger. Even though I bought a used EV and didn't take advantage of any new tax credit, I was still able to get that charging installation decently subsidized. So just be smart about it and factor that in. And these are basically the reasons that Coleton and I enjoy driving EVs and the bigger picture of it, which I think is really important to consider amidst this market where, yes, as early adopters, we eat some now and then, but we also get to enjoy a lot of driving an EV. Thanks for joining me for this one, Coleton, and thank you everyone for tuning in to At a Spec Guide. Check out our channel and just stay tuned for more content on EV ownership and buying experiences and the like. Thanks for watching. Bye.